think things can improve, and I think the thing that will make things improve is when withdrawals become enabled, right? This is the thing that has not happened yet, and I think people still haven't fully updated to it, right? Because right now, withdrawals have not yet been enabled, staking is not yet liquid, and so, if you stake, you just have to keep staking until withdrawals do get enabled. And that does give a kind of liquidity benefit to, joining Lido or joining, any staking service, or whether it's a DAO or it's a centralized system, right? But after withdrawals, then if you got your 32 ETH, you'll be in the, you run a node, and you will be able to withdraw immediately. And then if you decide to stake through a staking pool, then you will be able to, also withdraw and actually withdraw power from whoever's running that staking pool and give your staking power to someone else, right? So the same thing that you can do with proof of work mining pools. So after withdrawals, things improve a lot. The other issue that I think is worth getting to directly, right, that I think a lot of people are concerned right now is this whole transaction censorship because of builders and MEV issue.
That was my next question.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think it is worth talking about, right? And it's it's worth mentioning both that first of all, regardless of all the noise, right? Censorship resistance in terms of transactions getting into blocks is a one-event trust model, right? You just have to wait until there's one staker that includes you, right? So even if 90% of people start censoring, which is way more than happens on the Ethereum network right now, you would just have to wait on average 10 slots, right? And 10 slots is 120 seconds, 2 minutes, which is about the same, ironically enough, as you would have had to wait on average pre-EIP1559 and pre-proof of stake, and then your transaction would get included, right? So it's basically, we still have a long way to go before this actually becomes a significant problem for users who are vulnerable to censorship from a network perspective. But then at the same time, I think we don't want to be one step away from having big protocol level censorship problems. We want to be 10 steps away, right? Yep. And I think right now we're not 10 steps away, and it's important to acknowledge that, and it's important to talk about the things that we can do and the things that we are doing to get to the level where we're 10 steps away, right? So I think one thing that's important to emphasize is that MEV is not a property of proof of stake, right? MEV is a property of blockchains that support sophisticated applications in general, right? And it's important to clear up this misconception because lots of people do have this misconception. I've even talked to regulators that have this misconception, right? Basically, the misconception I think exists for a very simple reason, which is that the whole MEV situation and the proof of stake switch happened at basically the same time, right? But the reason why MEV exists is because there are these sophisticated applications that create this property that they create a big incentive to make a lot of money by getting your transaction in first, right? So if you look at something like Uniswap, let's say, if right now the price of ETH is 1,300, and then 12 seconds later, we get some news and Sam did something else, and the price of ETH on Binance immediately drops to 1,250, right? Then that creates an on-chain opportunity on Uniswap to sell ETH for DAI or ETH for USDC on Uniswap, and all the way down to until the price on Uniswap gets to the 1,250 level, right? And whoever can make the first transaction in the next block, they're the ones that can do that, and they're the ones that can just grab up and sell all of that ETH on average at 1275 and make a pretty significant arbitrage profit, right? Something like Bitcoin does not have an equivalent to this, and I do think that this is one of the virtues of having blockchains that do not support sophisticated applications at layer one, right? Because like there is no way to make something like Uniswap on top of Bitcoin. There is no way to, make something like MakerDAO on top of Bitcoin. And, MakerDAO, in this case, like it has MEV because of liquidations, right? And like I remember there was one moment during the crash 2 years ago where there was a period of 2 minutes during which Justin Sun could have been liquidated for $1 billion, right?
Or liquidated.
Exactly, but he didn't, right? And like that was a $100 million MEV opportunity that just ended up not getting claimed because infrastructure was not sophisticated enough, right? But like Bitcoin as a blockchain that does not support what I call rich statefulness is does not have MEV opportunities of this type. Now it still can, right? So like if, for example, right now I publicly speak the private key to like one of my wallets, then that creates an MEV opportunity, and everyone's going to be immediately taking out their laptops, probably even here in this audience, and like trying to enter the private key and be the first to like import it into a wallet and send a transaction out, right? And people are going to bid up and try to replace by fee each other, but that's that's much more rare in Bitcoin than it is in Ethereum, right? And that is because Ethereum supports these more advanced applications at layer 1. Now, there's this interesting question of, could Ethereum get to the point where it is sort of less MEV heavy, right? And this gets into one of the discussions in Ethereum philosophy, which is like MEV mitigation versus MEV kind of redistribution and a sort of MEV reclaiming, right? And on the MEV mitigation side, like one way in which it could happen is if we all move to layer 2s, right? Because if we move to layer 2s, then like at least all of that crazy activity happens in a system that's sort of one step removed from Ethereum proper, and Ethereum proper can kind of focus on being this more sort of safe and secure layer 1, and the one layer of distance between sort of the layer 1 and the craziness actually means that the craziness doesn't kind of pose a systemic risk to the decentralization of the layer 1 in the same way, right? So that's one approach, and that's happening. We have layer 2s, and we also have applications that are more MEV minimized, like CalSwap is a good example. And then there's the MEV mitigation side, right? And the MEV kind of like reclaiming side, right? And that's where we have these discussions of like proposer-builder separation and MEV markets. And so the idea there is basically to say like, okay, MEV is an issue, and there are these profits that can be claimed by just capturing the opportunity to choose what the first transaction is within the next block. And what happens what happens there right now, right, is that we have this system called MEV Boost, which basically allows proposers to auction off the full rights to choose what goes on in their block, right? And on the one hand, it's good that these systems exist, right? Because if these systems did not exist, then just being able to make profits from MEV would be something that's only available to like very sophisticated staking pools, and then like Coinbase and Lido domination would really be a big problem, right? Fortunately, we do have these outsourcing markets, and because of these outsourcing markets, even the little guy does actually have a chance to, make these sophisticated MEV profits without having to figure out MEV and run complicated software themselves, because they just basically outsource the right to make a block, right?
And it can be extremely profitable.
Exactly.
We've seen in periods of volatility. It's almost like a lottery for somebody running maybe 1 or 2 validators, but we've seen block rewards of 350, 380.
Exactly, yeah, it's huge, right?
Yes.
Now, the problem that we have now, though, is that because it's like a full block auction, right, it does create this other censorship risk, which is that if you're outsourcing the right to create a full block and you're outsourcing to sophisticated actors, then like sophisticated actors do have a kind of, a sort of vulnerability to censorship footprint, right? And because, these are often big and powerful companies. They're, not, random cypherpunk anons or whatever. And, and they're definitely sort of they're further away from being random cypherpunk anons than the individual stakers are, right? And the problem right now is that they choose the full contents of the block. And so the next stage in Ethereum, or in the development of these MEV marketplaces is basically, can we outsource the ability to choose the enough of the block that you can claim the MEV revenue without outsourcing the right to choose everything about the block, right? So there's different names for this, like there's an inclusion list, there's partial block auctions, there's just a bunch of different ways to refer to kind of the same concept, but the concept is basically that we give the proposer to choose some things and we give the builder that they're outsourcing to the ability to choose other things, where we try to split those some things and the other things in such a way that the other things give the builder enough freedom to claim the MEV, but then the some things still give the proposer enough freedom to ensure that any transactions that they want to see included actually will be included, right? And so we give back the proposer the ability to choose and say, here are transactions I know about, and I want to guarantee that these transactions are going to be included, which is, the status quo that we have today, or the status quo that we had before MEV became an issue, the status quo that also exists today in Bitcoin, but at the same time, we do get some of the benefits of specialization, right? So this is the next step. This is the hope. And
one quick one.
Mariano.
Yes.
You still have 10 minutes. We won't open to questions.
Yeah.
So you can do your own side. No, we won't open. You just.
Have we already been talking for like 50 minutes? It's crazy. Okay. Let me ask a final one then. Oh man, wanted to talk about so many things. So we talked a lot about this. This is the scourge, right? This is MEV becoming like a main topic of. Are you worried that there might be a monopoly of builders? Can that be mitigated? And if you can just answer a couple of minutes, and then we'll have.
Sure, yeah, no, it's a good concern. I think a lot of what I've just talked about now is mitigating the consequences of a monopoly of builders, but I think, once again, we'd rather be 10 steps away from the protocol censoring than 5 steps away, right? And so I think it's important to kind of take all paths at the same time, right? And the path that he talked about is surviving a builder monopoly and making sure that Ethereum, would not censor and transactions will be included very quickly, even within 2 slots or 1 slot, even if there's a builder monopoly. But we should also talk about the aspect of how to prevent a builder monopoly or minimize the chance that a builder monopoly emerges in the first place. And in that case, I think there's a bunch of different ideas, right? So one of them is this concept of decentralized builders, right? Where instead of a builder being this kind of monolithic centralized actor, the builder itself can be a protocol. Now, you might ask, well, what's the benefit of the builder being a protocol? Why would this outcompete centralized builders? And the theory would be that builders that are protocols would be able to take inputs from a lot of different independent actors that are called searchers, right? And searchers are independent actors that know individual strategies for extracting MEV. So one searcher might specialize in arbitrage and Uniswap, another searcher might specialize in liquidations, another one might specialize in buying digital monkeys that have been underpriced. Different searchers would specialize in different strategies, and then they would all talk to this decentralized builder protocol, and there would be some privacy protection, could be SGX, could be MBC, could be CD snarks, could be some combination of lots of things. And they would work together, and the builder protocol would create a block that combines together inputs from a lot of different searchers, and then a builder as a protocol would then propose that combined block to the proposer, right? Yeah. And so the idea there would be that instead of each block being created, instead of the agency in creating even the part of the block that collects MEV being concentrated in one actor. It would actually come from lots of actors, and there would be a merging protocol that would be able to combine the inputs from all of those lots of actors together, right? And so instead of having a dominant builder, you would actually have a very diverse searcher ecosystem that would make it easy for new searchers to join, right?
Yep.
So that's...
I'm sorry, if anybody has questions, I don't know if they're doing microphones or somebody's standing up and...
Hello. Hi, I'm Santiago Casina from Cointelegraph. I just want to ask you if you can, what are your thoughts of crypto Twitter attacking so much on Cardano and Charles Hoskinson?
No comment.
Welcome. What are your thoughts on the recent events of the industry and what can we learn as a community?
Okay, I think the big takeaway that I would want people to have, and that I would even want the non-crypto world to have, is ask not whether or not crypto succeeded or failed, but ask which parts of crypto succeeded and which parts of crypto failed, right? Because I think in some ways asking that question gives you the opposite lesson in a lot of ways, right? Like, if you think about regulation, for example, as a binary and like as a knob of, either we let exchanges have more fun or we force them to be more stodgy, it makes it feel like it sometimes seems like, more regulation is better, but like you really have to dig into the details and say like, what kind of regulation are we talking about? And, and then on the flip side, like what kind of crypto projects are we talking about, right? And in this case, the FTX is a centralized exchange. It was also an exchange that was headquartered in the Bahamas, which was a choice that was in part motivated by the lack of a US regulatory framework that let them do what they wanted to do. It was a exchange run by a person who was very politically connected and who apparently was in the process of trying pretty hard to get some no-action letters from the SEC, who donated a huge amount to all kinds of politicians. That was what ended up breaking and creating a really big $10 billion splat for everyone. What parts of crypto ended up not failing? The networks did not fail. Bitcoin did not fail. Ethereum did not fail. Solana did not fail, actually. The Solana network did not have any outage as a result of the craziness, right? So
the oracles didn't update, so a regulation took like 2 days.
Right. MakerDAO did not fail. Uniswap did not fail. Even crypto DeFi lending platforms did not fail, right? It was interesting, right? When, I think Alameda and like some of the other crazy funds, it might have been 3AC, those guys, right? It's, they took out lots of loans in lots of places. They did DeFi loans and they did CeFi loans. What happened with the CeFi loans? Well, sometimes they were able to convince the CeFi operators to just give them loans without collateral because well, look, they just look like responsible, nice guys. What about the DeFi loans? They're like, sorry, I'm a piece of code, and I'm a piece of code, and I can't see what kind of suit you wear, and I can't see the color of your skin and the color of your political platform. So no, gotta give you collateral. And, the DeFi won, right? And, DeFi platforms totally survived, right? And it's, so self-custody won. That's a big one, right? I think there were a lot of people who were hurt by the FTX crash that totally did not engage in any kind of crazy degen leverage stuff, right? They just yeah, they just wanted a place to park their coins, right? And for a lot of people, like, you know, parking their coins, you know, they need to park their coins somewhere, and self-custody worked, you know, centralized solutions did not work, but at the same time, as I think I said on the panel yesterday, it's important to recognize, you know, why people used the centralized platforms and not self-custody options, which is that centralized platforms provide a lot of convenience that you know, self-custody doesn't, right? Like setting up self-custody effectively is still hard, right? And you know, you have to figure your way out around Gnosis safe wallets. You know, you have to understand if you're doing the hardware option, like, you know, you have to carry a hardware wallet around and you have to write down the 12 words. And you know, if you're a nomad, you have to figure out like, okay, where are the 12 words even going to be stored? And you know, if you store the 12 words in your house, then like, what happens if your house burns down? What happens if you know, people learn that you're a millionaire and they go and rob your house, right? And there's just like lots of complexity still, but you know, centralized options, it's like, hey, you know, Sam, he's a nice guy. You know, his face is all over in San Francisco, and you know, just like put the coins on his platform and it's trustworthy, right? So, but you know, we saw the limits of that model over the last week, but I think we can't just rely on the stick. We have to rely on the carrot, right? And the carrot is like, you know, we actually have to make the DeFi and self-custody options actually work better, right? And I think you know, we in both the Bitcoin community and the Ethereum community, like, you know, really value self-custody, really value you know, open and transparent code, and we have to like improve things to the point where those options actually are people's first choice, and you know, where they actually are powerful enough and easy to use enough to you know, really do a good job of serving people's needs. And so I hope that's the side of the crypto ecosystem that is going to see more of the spotlight over the next few years.
Amazing. I think we're out of time, or can we do one last
question? One last question on the question. Or you? No.
Oh, crap. Find us later and we'll,
Okay.
maybe we'll take some questions. Okay, let's do a...
Bueno, un aplauso para
Muchísimas gracias. Gracias, Vitalik. Él estaba hablando y yo estaba tomando agua, es impresionante. Gracias, Rodo, por la oportunidad. Llévate esta. La copa no la toco.
A todos les dieron en la puerta.